Good morning, everyone, and welcome to yet another series of vocabulary words for you. Our first word for today is illuminate. Illuminate means to light something. To light something, as in if you want to light the room, right? If you want to spread light throughout the room, you are illuminating the room. To explain and show more clearly also can be said as to illuminate. For example, the streets were illuminated with strings of colored lights. So the streets were, you know, seeing a lot of colored lights, which were causing the street to lighten up, right? So streets were illuminated with strings of colored lights. This article illuminates the basic principles of economics. That means this article is explaining, is clearly showing basic principles of economics. So illuminates also means explaining or showing more clearly. They use games and drawings to illuminate their subject, right? That means they want to explain and show concepts more clearly in their subject, and they do it by using games and drawings, right? So illuminate means to light something or to explain and show more clearly. That is illuminate. Right? Okay, let's see our next word, imminent. Imminent means about to happen or likely to happen very soon. A rainstorm was imminent. That means it was very likely that a rainstorm would happen, right? If something is imminent, that means you're saying it's about to happen. It will happen very soon, right? That means you're predicting the occurrence of that event in the future. Where failure seemed imminent, the typical response was a defensive resort to criticism. Where failure seemed imminent, where failure seemed more likely to happen. Like it was like failure, we'll definitely see failure here. That means failure was imminent. It was going to happen very soon. An announcement about his resignation is imminent. That means we'll very soon hear the announcement of his resignation, right? So, imminent, something that's about to happen or is likely to happen very soon, right? All right. Let's see our next word. Immure. Immure means to keep someone or something within certain limits or shut in. Okay. If you are keeping a person or a thing within certain limits, within certain boundaries, you are confining them, or a person is a shut in, right? They are inside maybe their room and they stay there, they don't come out, a lot. So we can say they are immune. She immured herself in books. That means she confined herself inside books, like she was surrounding herself with books and she would not step out of that world. She shut herself in the world of books. Immured in a dark, airless cell, the hostages waited 6 months for their release. Immured in a dark, airless cell, confined, or you can say, kept the hostages with certain limits, which was that dark, airless cell for 6 months. So, what will we say? They were immured. Such findings remain mostly immured in the academy. However, such findings remain immured, such findings remain shut. They are not, brought to the, foremost. They are not brought in the picture. Such findings, they are kept from everyone, right? Kept from everyone, kept hidden away from everyone, right? So that's immure. to keep someone or something within certain limits, or a shut-in is immune, right? Okay. Our next word, impair. Now, impair means to spoil something or make it weaker so that it is less effective. If you spoil something, you impair that thing. If you make something weaker, you are impairing it. Okay. For example, a recurring injury may have impaired his chances of winning. So, because he was having a recurring knee injury, his knee injury would keep occurring, again. So, it was recurring, right? And because of that recurring knee injury, his chances of winning were spoiled, were impaired, right? Lack of sleep impaired her ability to think clearly. Since she was not sleeping properly, her ability to think was becoming weak. So we can say was becoming impaired, right? Impaired ability of thinking. Tiredness can seriously impair your ability to drive. If you're tired, you will not be able to drive. You will, you'll lose, not lose, you'll weaken your ability to drive if you are tired. So tiredness can impair your ability to drive. So what is impair? To spoil something or make it weaker so it is less effective, right? That's impair. Impecunious. Impecunious means having very little money. Basically, you're broke or penniless, which many students are. So, if you are having very little money, you're almost broke, or you are broke, or you're penniless, don't even have a single penny. You are impecunious. I first knew him as an impecunious student living in a tiny apartment. The first time that I got to know him, at that point in his life, he was broke, did not have money, lived in a tiny apartment, right? Virgilio came from a respected but impecunious family. Like his family was respected but had very little money. Poetry may be a noble vocation, but poets are an impecunious lot. That means many poets, they don't get to earn a lot and they have very little money, right? That's why. So impecunious, having very little money, being broke or being penniless. Just like this man having the wallet without money is impecunious, right? Okay. Next is impediment. Impediment means something that makes progress difficult or impossible. Any event, any occurrence, anything that hinders your progress, right? That impairs your progress, that becomes, a stone in the path in your progress. That thing would be an impediment, right? The lack of funds is a major impediment to research. If you don't have funds, it would be difficult to progress with research, right? So lack of funds is going to be an impediment. The new taxes were a major impediment to economic growth. The new taxes that are being levied, they would be something that would not allow progress of our economy, right? shortage of money was Shortage of money was not the only impediment to higher education. For higher education, definitely shortage of money is one thing that can cause obstruction in your progress, but there are other things too, right? So impediment means something that makes progress difficult or impossible, right? Just like this car standing here can't go here, right? Why? Because there's a stone in middle. So this stone is causing their progress of journey impossible. True? So the stone being there is an impediment, right? Okay. And next word is impenetrable. If something is impenetrable, it means it's impossible to see through or go through or understand, right? So if any object does not allow you to see through, right, it's impenetrable. If it does not allow you to go through it, it's impenetrable. Or if you can't understand something or someone, they're impenetrable, right? For example, outside the fog was thick and impenetrable. That means you couldn't see through that fog. It was so thick. Some of the lyrics on their latest album are completely impenetrable. That means some of the lyrics are totally not understandable, right? You can't really understand what they want to say. Too many scholarly books are written in an impenetrable jargon, right? So, too many scholarly books, they are written in such a way that it's hard to understand, right? So, impenetrable, impossible to see through or go through or understand it, right? Could be a concept, could be a book, could be a person, could be any event, right? All right. Now, let's see our next word. Imperative. Imperative means extremely important, urgent, or unavoidable. If something is said to be extremely important, you say that thing is imperative. If something is urgent, you say it's imperative. Can't avoid an event or thing, it's imperative. It is imperative that these medical supplies be delivered immediately. That means it's very important that you deliver these medical supplies immediately because people might need them, right? Getting the unemployed back to work is a moral imperative. If you have to, recruit the people who have been unemployed recently, that is a moral imperative. Your morals say that it's extremely important, right? It's imperative to act now before the problem gets really serious, right? That means it's very important, it's urgent to act now before the problem gets really serious, right? So, imperative means extremely important, urgent, or unavoidable, right? Okay. Our next word, impetuous. Impetuous means acting or done quickly and without thought or care. Then, impetuous as I was, I bought a new car before I even got a job, right? So, if you do something in your life or you act upon something in your life quickly and you don't give much thought to it or don't care much about it, then your act is an impetuous one, right? For example, buying a car even before you get a job. How impetuous is that? I wish that he would not be so impetuous and impulsive. So, someone who is impulsive is also doing the same thing, acting or doing things without thinking too much, right? Youngsters are usually more impetuous than old people. That means youngsters act upon things without thinking too much, right? So, impetuous means acting or doing things quickly without thought or care. Okay, let's see. Impetus. Impetus means something that urges or impels, a driving force. Okay. For example, much of the impetus for change came from customers' opinions. That means the customers' opinions were a driving force for the company to change. The opinions made the company change themselves. Why? Because it was a driving force. People listen to the opinions and then they want to change, right? So the thing that made you change would be an impetus. The treaty will give an impetus to trade between the two countries. So this treaty would be a driving force, a force of change, between the trade rules of the two countries. The original impetus for nuclear power, of course, was military. So the reason that nuclear power was brought into existence. The original driving force, the original reason, you can say, the one who urged it was military, right? So impetus, something that urges or impels a driving force. Now let's revise. Impetus, something that urges or impels, that is a driving force. If something in your life, in anyone's life, is pushing them to do something, a reason, a cause can be an impetus, right? A reason or a cause that induces change is an impetus, right? So if people's opinions or customers' opinions were an impetus for change, that means customers' opinions were the driving force for a change in the company. Impetuous means acting or doing things quickly without thought or care. He bought a new car before he got a job. How impetuous is that, right? How can you buy a car without having a job? Like, that is just having debt on you, right? So that is impetuous. Never be impetuous. Imperative, something that's extremely important, urgent, or unavoidable. If you cannot avoid a certain circumstance, if something is extremely important to be done or urgent in terms of matters, like any urgent matter, right? Then such things are called as imperative. For example, it is imperative that these medical supplies be delivered immediately. That means it is of extreme importance that you deliver these medical supplies. It's urgent, right? Okay. Impenetrable, you can learn it in three ways. Like there are three aspects to this word. One, if something is impossible to see through, if something is impossible to go through, and if something is impossible to understand, right? So these things, these three things would be called as impenetrable. So let's say fog. If the fog was thick and you could not see through the fog is impenetrable. If the lyrics were not understandable, then the lyrics were impenetrable, right? If you couldn't, if you couldn't walk through a certain area or a certain, let's say the plastic was so thick that no one could walk through it, so the plastic was impenetrable, right? So impenetrable is impossible to see through, go through, or understand. Impediment, something that makes your progress difficult or impossible. The lack of funds is a major impediment to research. That means not having enough money is going to be an obstruction for progress of research, right? So impediment is anything that causes obstruction in progress, right? Impecunious, it means someone who has very little money or is broke or penniless, right? You know how students are impecunious in their early days, right? That means they don't have money, they are broke, they are penniless, right? Impair. Impair means to spoil something or make it weaker so that it is less effective. If something is spoiling your chances of another thing or is making something less effective for you, you say this thing has impaired my chances, right? So if you are working a job, you are doing a part-time job and you're also studying, so and let's say you did not score well on your exams because of that job, so you'll say this part-time job impaired my chances of scoring well, right? So that's impair. Immure means to keep someone or something within certain limits, confining them or shut in. For example, she immured herself in books. She kept herself shut in the world of books, right? Immured in a dark cell, the hostages were kept inside the dark cell. So if you're keeping someone confined in an area, you say immure. Imminent, something that is about to happen or likely to happen very soon. You cannot avoid it. You know that it would happen now. It's very clear that this thing would happen, right? For example, a rainstorm was imminent That means the rainstorm would occur, and it's very likely that it'll happen very soon. Okay. Illuminate means to light something. Second meaning, to explain something or show something more clearly. Streets were illuminated with strings of colored lights. That means streets were lightened up, right, by the colored lights. Second way of saying illuminate, like using illuminate, article illuminates basic principles of economics. That means this article explains and shows clearly the basic principles of economics, right? All right, guys, this was it for today. Thank you so much. See you soon.